Welcome to the Listen Up podcast, where we explore hearing loss, communication, connections, and health.
Hey everybody, Dr. Mark Sims here. I'm the host of the Listen Up podcast, where I feature top leaders in healthcare. This episode is brought to you by Listen Up Hearing Center. I help patients to effectively treat their hearing loss so that they can connect better with their friends and family and remain independent. The reason I'm so passionate about hearing loss is I lost my brother Robbie twice. First, to hearing loss from radiation to his brain tumor, and then when he passed away. I only care for ears. I'm the E of ENT. I performed over 10,000 surgeries and taken care of many more with hearing loss. I'm the founder of Listen Up Hearing Center, and I'm the author of a book the same, Listen Up, A Physician's Guide to Effectively Treating Your Hearing Loss. If you want to learn more about that, go to listenuphearing.com. I have a really great and interesting guest. It's Dr. Fred Pescatore, MD. He has spent over the past 3 decades studying and researching and practicing medicine around the world, alongside some of today's most well-respected physicians. He makes good health easy to understand and attainable for any age and any fitness levels. These cutting-edge cures and single hearing methods are also featured in his daily email called Reality Health Check. You should go ahead and tell us how to subscribe to that. After graduating medical school from Columbia, he studied in Southeast Asia, India, Japan, Africa, and Europe, and certainly has a different take on healthcare. The techniques he gathered have become part of his broad knowledge base of healing. He's appeared extensively, radio, TV, across the United States. He's a best-selling author and he has his own YouTube and Instagram channel. We'll learn more about that. He's committed to sharing the latest breakthroughs in integrative and nutritional health to his audience. And today I asked him to come in and talk a little bit about aging and what you can do to age. Fred, thank you for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Oh, sure, Mark. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, this is great. So we're both what are called allopathic doctors, MD doctors. And, there are kind of some certain parameters that people have as a mindset of that. And it sounds like, you practice that type of medicine, but you've kind of pushed beyond some of what might be considered the limits of allopathic medicine. Is that a fair statement?
I think that's a pretty fair statement. Absolutely.
So I would love to hear how you evolved or came to that. So, I touched on your extensive travels. Tell a little bit about your story. So you young doctor finished up at Columbia and then what?
And then sort of said, okay, what else is going on in the world? There's got to be something else going on than just that. And as well as I know, how when you're in allopathic medicine, you're very dogmatic. You're following the rules. You're reading the books. You're studying for the exams. You do everything your professors want you to do. Anything your attending wants you to do. And then, as a young man, I think I graduated medical school. I was 23, and I was kind of tired. I'm like,
that's
what
early.
else?
You graduated early, right?
Yeah, and I'm sort of like, so what else is out there? What else is there to do? And that's what started me on this road to healing cultures around the world. And then sort of on the way back towards all of this after residency and stuff, I was able to work with Dr. Robert Atkins and run his medical center. And so that again was just the next level of, wow, people really pay attention. People pay attention to their health and they're enjoying being healthy, not just coming to the doctor because they're sick.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so, what was the first place you went? It's fascinating to me. You finished medical school. How does one get connected to go abroad and stuff? How did you make that happen? What's the story of that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. I was able to, in those days, there was no internet. So right. I know, believe, but there was no internet then. So you had to rely on connections. And so I happened to know someone who had a healing clinic in India, in Bangalore, India. And so I decided, let me spend a few months working with him because his mother was a very famous healer. Again, not an MD, not an allopathically trained medic. But his mother was one of the most famous healers in southern India. So I said, okay, let me see what this is all about. And so that's how I learned about Ayurvedic medicine and that sort of thing. So that was on the Indian herbal Ayurvedic healing channel. I got hooked up with other friends who were in Japan, on the North Island of Japan. And so learned about what goes on. How do you peep that? We have medicinal mushrooms that have been with us for 5,000 years. Why? What do they do? What do they do for you? And then after those two places, I just started really digging, learning about why do we know that chocolate's good for us? Well, we know chocolate's good for us because these Kuna Indians off the coast of Panama moved from the islands to the mainland of Panama. And when they moved to the mainland, they started getting heart disease, just like anyone else in Panama. And it was discovered it was because they were eating chocolate. And now, now we have Mars doing studies on whether chocolate's good for the brain, right? So it's really fascinating how in 30 years, I was looked at like a pariah. And now everything I've been doing for 30 years, everybody's like, oh yeah, this is really cool. Let's try to incorporate this into mainstream medicine. And I think that's great. I think that's awesome.
No, I think there's a tendency for us to kind of discount it if it's outside of our formula.
100%. And the problem with doing what I do, which is sort of integrating holistic medicine with allopathic medicine, is that there aren't really good ways of studying what I do. The model just doesn't work.
Like a randomized controlled study is not going to happen for you?
Correct. I mean, it's not going to be, I'm not going to give one person 400 milligrams of vitamin E and expect it to do everything it's not a drug. It's not P implies Q. It's what are you eating? How are you sleeping? How are your bowel movements? What's your energy level like? All of that goes into what I'm going to ask you to take and do for your life. So it's really hard to formulate those studies. That's why I have a lot of association studies, a lot of causal studies, but not a lot of what the gold standard of modern medicine dictates.
Yeah, but I mean, our experience with other systems is that they're typically highly multifactorial, and it's pretty hard to isolate a single factor and trace that through a whole system. I mean, I think we just give up on education's a perfect example, right? Context matters, parental involvement, community, school, teacher, diet, sleep. I mean, there are so many things that it's pretty hard to isolate out one thing. And so medicine, I think health is kind of the same. Would you agree?
Health is incredibly multifactorial. It's probably one of the most multifactorial things we have going on. I mean, and how our body even uses what we take in and how we sleep and all of that stuff, how much we exercise, how our body processes that. We have no clue. Right. We're just starting to scratch the surface of how this all interplays and interacts together, because there's no way on this planet that you can tell me that, attention deficit disorder is a low response to Ritalin. It's like not having enough Ritalin in the body. There's just ways of things that how we do things that we take for granted instead of looking at the whole picture. And I kind of like to put the whole picture together.
Yeah, well, I think medicine, everybody wants the single answer, right? And they want the pill. And
including
yeah. But we've taught our patients that too, right? Kind of, well, the visit ends with the prescription and that whatever that substance is that you take is what's going to be the thing. And so, obviously a pill is not a substitute for exercise, diet, sleep, all of those just basic health things, right?
And they're really basic, right? I mean, you have to think about people in our grandparents' generation who lived to be 97 and 100, and they smoked and drank. And we all hear about that. And it's like, sort of why, right? And you think about it. So what has changed in all this time, right? Our food supply has gotten terrible. Our food supply has just gotten worse and worse and worse throughout the years. Yes, we may have more food, but now we're facing, a malnutrition epidemic.
Despite a good supply of food, right? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And it's becoming it's just absurd to think about how many chemicals we have to deal with every day on a daily basis. Microplastics living in our lungs, all of these things that generations before us didn't have. And I worry the most about the younger generations, what all of this from day one, what is it? The cord blood has over 700 chemicals in it now. They can test cord for over 700 toxic chemicals.
Wow. And so if somebody wanted to increase their nutrition despite, whatever you want to call it, agribusiness or large scale agriculture, I mean, when I was younger, there were 4 billion people on the planet. Now there's 8 billion. Obviously, they need to eat, or there might have been 3. So, as we have to create more food on less space, obviously the nutritional value might change. What recommendations do you give to your patients in that respect?
Well, I often tell patients that eat as healthily as they can in that, in that respect. How much, and that goes to how much can you afford? How much access do you have? Again, it's a multifactorial system.
Right.
How does the food to your table, right? The average chicken breast travels 6,000 miles to our table. And that's, between where it's grown, where it's killed, it's amazing. And I guess the short answer to that question is I ask patients to try to eat locally, seasonally, and organically if they can, right? So you eat local food. I mean, when I was a child, we didn't have fruit all year round. We only had what was in season. It wasn't that you had everything available at all times. And I think we've gotten a little complacent with that fact. And it's just, I can't imagine it being healthy. So at the end of the day, it's local, seasonal, and organic if you can afford it.
Yeah, it's funny. I was in Asia over winter one time, and there was no vegetables because they weren't seasonal. And so that's the norm. And I was like, I would love to have a piece of a vegetable or fruit right now, but there was none because it really wasn't available locally.
Yeah. And that's how we should all be eating. That's how we ate 100 years ago. Yeah. Sugar was so expensive 100 years ago. So expensive.
The luxury.
Yep. It was a luxury item. Now, I mean, people eat 33 teaspoons of sugar a day, the average American, and that's pretty amazing.
And a lot of sugar.
Health, yes, a lot of sugar.
That's a lot. Two teaspoons an hour every waking hour.
Yeah. I mean, I never thought of it that way, but yeah.
Because you got to sleep, right? So you can't just keep it around. So that's a lot of sugar. And so, we on the podcast, we talk about hearing and brain health. And so that was one of the things that, in terms of brain health, obviously hearing is so essential to aging well, but there are other things that can help your brain age well. So what type of advice do you give, and actually before that, like what type of areas have you explored in that respect? And then what type of advice do you give?
For brain health, you're talking about neurological health.
Memory, all that stuff, keeping sharp, all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's lots of, I always recommend brain exercises. I think people should do brain exercises starting at an early age, whether it's a crossword puzzle, Sudoku, all of those things that cause us to cause recall. I think it's really important that we maintain recall at all times. A lot of people are so worried about that as we age. Exercise goes a long way to preventing the spread of, mild dementia to moderate dementia,
right.
And and it's not a lot of exercise, and so I try to break it down to make it, simple, because that's what people want. They want the quick fix. They want it to be simple. And I think it is simple. I think when you look at, you don't need a lot of exercise to get the brain benefits. You don't need a lot of exercise to decrease your blood pressure, because blood pressure plays a critical role in how well your brain's going to age. Whether you have diabetes or not is going to play a critical role in how well your brain ages. Whether you're hearing or not, as you know, the latest studies came out about hearing and memory loss and dementia and all of that. So I think there's so many little things we can do that just add up over a long period of time to keep our brains healthy. Sure, are there nutritional supplements that I recommend? Sure, there's plenty of those. There's millions of those that have some sort of claim, some sort of statistic, some sort of study that has been going on around them. But I think the biggest part of brain health is keeping our levels of inflammation down, as well as our circulatory level, our circulatory system working. And how do we do that? Staying in shape, exercising, eating correctly, all of that helps bring the oxygen supply to the brain. And that's what we need, keeping the oxygen supply to the brain. And then we will not suffer from dementia. Now, I'm not talking about Alzheimer's. I think Alzheimer's is a separate thing altogether. But I think if we're talking about basic brain health, it's really about doing the little things, a lot of them over a long period of time, which, you just get them into your schedule and your routine. And it's like everything else, you just do it.
Well, so that's great. I mean, especially, multiple times you said not a lot of exercise. So, just kind of talk about that. And I know what you're talking, but, sometimes people think, oh, I've got to, go to the gym 2 hours, 6 days a week or something like that. So, what type of examples? And I know, obviously, if you're sedentary, almost any exercise is good to you compared to watching TV for 3.5 hours a night. But what type of exercise are you talking about, Fred?
I mean, we are not talking about a lot of exercise, right? What does the government tell us we should do? 150 minutes of vigorous, moderate to vigorous activity? That's a lot for people to do, especially as they age. So, but then there are lots of other studies that show 15 minutes of exercise, 5 minutes of exercise. And exercise includes cleaning the house, washing the dishes, parking. I tell people to park far away from the store, park at the parking lot and just use that time to walk. Or if you live in a city like I do, get off the subway a stop earlier. Don't take the bus all the way, walk a little bit extra. And that's really all it takes is 5 to 10 minutes a day. All the latest studies are coming out at 5 to 10 minutes a day of keeping your brain healthy. And so that's not a lot.
No, it's actually used to be what people did almost just to live, right? 100 years ago.
Exactly. It was routine. It was routine that we all moved around. And now that's the opposite of routine. People get in their cars, they do everything. I mean, fortunate enough, I live in New York City, so I'm hardly ever in a car, which is great. But for everybody else in the rest of America, probably the rest of the world, everybody gets in cars. So
yeah, no, it's definitely and kind of come in from the car, hit the couch, and turn on the TV and call it a day, right?
Books anymore, they order in, they take away. So it's not even that level of exercise, chopping the vegetables and sauteing things or throwing it in the oven, just little simple things. So it's really not a lot that you have to do to keep your brain healthy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think it's definitely, obviously I concentrate on the hearing and listening component of it for brain health. But, one of the things is you can have great hearing and great listening skills, but if all the other stuff isn't working well, it's not going to reduce some of the problems in the aging process.
Yeah, I mean, look, aging is as we started out this conversation, multifactorial. But I think in nowhere are people who age the best are sedentary. So I talk exercise all the time, but it's also keeping your levels of inflammation down, which is by cutting out the sugar in your diet. Just simple things like that. And even if it's cutting it down from 3 meals a day to 1 or 2, that's a big change in how much you're eating every day over a period of a lifetime, over a year, over 2 years, over 5 years. It's all little things that people can do that's quite accessible and doesn't cost them money.
Yeah, it's like the reverse of smoking, right? Smoking one cigarette doesn't kill you. It's smoking a bunch. And doing this every day won't save you, but doing a bunch or doing it one day is not going to save you, but doing it consistently will make your life healthier and better.
Right. And that's all we can ask people to do. There's a lot they can do. But I have always found in doing this for 30 years is that it's the simplest stuff gets the most traction with patients.
Yeah. I mean, do you think you have challenges just with compliance, or do people get pre-screened because they come talk to you? You're by nature, the people who come see you are kind of, predilected to being compliant with what you.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. People who come to see me know what I'm talking about. They've read my newsletters, they've read my books, they've seen me on TV, whatever. So they know where I'm coming from. So it's not a surprise when they walk in my office and I tell them, okay, here's how we're changing your diet. Here's the nutritional supplements I want you to do. Here's the amount of exercise I want you to do. And they come there asking for it.
Right.
They literally come there. I need to know what I can do to be better and how I can prevent X or prevent Y or stay healthy or age better or however you want to call it. I mean, we're all going to age, but you can age in a more graceful way.
Or as best as possible, whatever that means, right?
Yeah, whatever that means.
And so you mentioned you have a newsletter or an email newsletter every day. What's it called again?
It's called Reality Health Check.
And they can find that on your website, drpescatore.com. Is that right?
drpescatore.com. And they just put in their email address and it's free and it'll come to you probably annoyingly so 4 days a week.
So it's an interesting thing. Like, so how do you come up with the topics? I mean, that you have to be somewhat prolific to not become repetitive. And so how do you do that?
I keep up with the medical news. I sign up for a whole bunch of different medical news sites and I comb through the medical news on my phone and then decide which ones I'm going to keep and which ones I'd like to talk about, which ones I think my audience would be interested in and what interests me. It's also sort of what I think would be good for people to listen to or to read, I guess, because and some of the advice, as you know, has to be repetitive. You have to over and over and over again before it clicks sometimes. But I think I've been doing this. I've got 11 years of archives. So there's quite a lot of information in there. And I do all sorts of special things. I package things together for people. If they're only interested in brain health, I have a brain health protocol and a cancer protocol and a heart protocol. So trying to keep it so that they don't have to go through all of that information.
So you mean from your newsletters, you've got them subtyped? Is that what you're talking about? Or
yeah, I have them subtyped and I'll do special editions of things. But the daily newsletter just is whatever's on my mind.
whatever
That
comes through
particular,
the news
well, not
or
that day.
developments?
Takes 2 weeks from it goes to my mind till you get it in your inbox. But
You mean to be written and proofread and all of that?
And it's got to be proofread. Somebody's got to look at it.
No, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And how long of a read is it?
Oh, it's short. It's 400 words.
Yeah, I was looking at some of them. Yeah, that's about right. I was just trying to figure out. So yeah, that's a real quick kind of little medical factoid brain dump type of thing, right?
Yeah, it's basically 2 minutes of reading, not even, 2 minutes of reading. I mean, I have a monthly that's much more in depth and all of that, but that's people have to pay for that one. But then I think the daily ones are great. You get lots of good information, really fast, really easy.
No, that's really wonderful. And so again, if people wanted to find you, how would they find you, Brett?
Find me how on the web?
You mean your website, or if they wanted to connect with you? And
website is drpescatore.com. You could send me messages there. I have a cooking show on YouTube called Cooking with Dr. Fred.
How often do the episodes come out on that?
Depends what mood I'm in.
Well, what did you cook recently?
What did I cook recently on there? I think it was just a simple local fish stir fry and local vegetables that I had grown in my yard. So I think it was that. I'm sure it was that. So
in some ways you're just I mean, in a lot of ways, it sounds like you share just kind of what you're doing in your life and have kind of helped it to help other people, right? Because I suspect you would have made that fish fry, whether or not you had a YouTube channel or not. Is that correct?
100%. That's what I was having for dinner. I thought they might like this too, so that they could see how easy it is to make food. And all of my cooking shows are like 20 minutes, 30 minutes max, and they're edited really well. So you're not sitting there watching me watch soup boil, boil.
Here I am dicing chives for 3 minutes. I assume that it appears in the clear glass bowl, all diced, right? Is that how it kind of works? So.
Yeah. So you get how to do it, but you also get how simplistic it is, and how I can cook that meal in 30 minutes, and it'll take you longer to call and order it or go pick it up from somewhere. And I know every ingredient that's in there.
Right. So yeah. Right. No, I get it. Like in terms of as compared to when you get restaurant food, you're not really sure exactly what it can put. Not that they're bad, but they use all sorts of stuff that we don't necessarily want to have in our food.
No, and we wouldn't use it in our own kitchen, so but I get it. Restaurants have to do what they have to do. So I get that. And we all need restaurants. So, but
yeah, no, I mean, in my field, sometimes salt is a culprit. And I always tell them, restaurants don't make money selling bland food. So it's pretty hard to get a chef to skip the salt, to each his own. But that's a challenge, though.
It is probably, the salt must dehydrate people, and then it works for the year too.
Yeah. And so if you could if people said, okay, what are the, three, I know it's a really hard, because I'm sure your advice is well beyond 3 pearls, but if you could pass on 3 pearls to people today, what would those be? Do you have any 3 just kind of pearls?
Sure. Easy. Decrease the amount of sugar and simple carbohydrates you eat. Eat more vegetables. And sleep. Get sleep. Focus on sleep. Sleep is important to people, and a lot of people think sleep is irrelevant and that it doesn't affect them. I can get by in 4 hours. Well, no, your body can't get by in 4 hours. You may be, but just give it some time. So I think those are the 3 simple things to work on.
And maybe sleep's a big issue. I think it's a complex issue. So you were talking about multifactorial complex things. I think sleep is another one of those.
Absolutely. Between the blue light, the glare, the anxiety of the days that we have. I mean, it's a lot. But
I think it changes as you age.
Boy, does it ever, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. Think about yourself at 20, 30, 40, 50. Like
Right.
it's different all the time, which is great because you can kind of make changes and adjustments at each juncture of your life. And it's not too late. It's never too late to start exercising. It's never too late to get good sleep. It's never too late to start eating right. It just never is too late to do that, but don't wait until it is too late. Like when you have a bad diagnosis or you've got something you can't handle. And, it's 'cause up until then, it's not too late.
No, I agree 100%. Fred, I love asking everybody this. What's your favorite sound?
My favorite sound is probably the ocean crashing against rocks.
Yeah, that's a really great sound. So do you get access to that? Not immediately in New York, but there are places outside, correct?
There are places I have access to that. Yes, absolutely. And I do it as much as I can.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, for the listeners, everybody, this is Dr. Fred Pescatore. He obviously has a wealth of knowledge in terms of, the things you can do just besides the traditional allopathic or MD things. Not that he's opposed to them as well, but, in terms of overall health lifestyle. And if you want to learn more about him, go to Dr. Pescatore, PESCATORE.com. And you can learn more about him. And it sounds like, I just subscribed recently to his newsletter today, I'll confess, but I want to take a look at his daily newsletter or 4 times a week, and learn more about it. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This has been great.
Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Listen Up podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get updates on future episodes.